Yeah, I want to pick up a little bit where Dan left off. Dan mentioned alarmism, and we definitely have that in the misinformation and disinformation debate in America. Americans are more concerned about mis and disinformation than they are sexism, racism, terrorism, climate change. They are of one mind, I guess, here with the World Economic Forum, as Dan was speaking about. And 55% of Americans say that government should take steps to restrict misinformation. And this is up from 38% in 2018. But when you ask Americans where the biggest cause for concern surrounding misinformation is, they'll say it's politicians spreading misinformation, right? So they want the government to take steps to regulate misinformation. I don't know who they think in government is going to be doing that, if not the politicians that they think are the biggest spreaders of misinformation. So our debate surrounding mis and disinformation can be a little bit schizophrenic. Let's accept the premise that mis and disinformation is problematic. Dan cited a statistic I was going to cite, right? That misinformation makes up 0.15% of the media diet that Americans consume. I think this room probably isn't representative of most Americans. Most Americans spend less than 10 minutes a day consuming news at all, right? But even if the news they are consuming is incorrect, I don't think that justifies the government then coming in to police it. This is the country of George Orwell in 1984. That book was a cautionary tale, not an instruction manual. Winston Smith, of course, the main character in that book, worked at the Ministry of Truth. And so the only institution that you can set up to really regulate this would be perhaps the government, and it would have to set up a Ministry of Truth, right? How else would you determine what is true or false? There was a viral tweet that just went around of this prominent political commentator in the United States saying that the misinformation debate has gotten so out of control, that our political ecosystem is so rife with lies, that the government needs to step in and police it. And one of my colleagues retweeted, I don't know what you call it now that it's called X, reposted it, I guess, and said, okay, sir, who would you have Donald Trump appoint to do this very important job, right? Misinformation and disinformation has been used to justify censorship from time immemorial, right? It was the Nazis who were setting up censorship commissions to police Jewish lies or Marxist propaganda. You got Stalin, for example, policing counter-revolutionary ideas and false information. China, North Korea, Russia right now with the war in Ukraine. This has always been the justification for censorship. We are in a new anarchic period after the rise of new and emerging technologies, social media, the internet, artificial intelligence. The solution is increased media literacy, as it has always been. The New York Times ran a broadside in 1858 talking about a new technology of the time, characterizing it as superficial, sudden, unsifted, too fast for truth. What was this technology? The telegraph. We are always concerned that new technologies are going to make it hard for us to determine truth from falsity. We had this with the printing press, as my colleague Greg Lukianoff, who was just up on the stage before me, likes to talk about. You get the printing press, then you get the Reformation, then you get the 30 Years' War, and then you get 8 million dead in Europe. Now, terrible, right? Europe had unsettled the truth that it had long known, the Catholic truth that it had long known, and 8 million people died. But are we worse off today for having the printing press? These are the trade-offs of new technology. In 1912, you had a law that was being proposed in Congress in the United States, policing manipulated photographs, because people were doing the analog version of Photoshop, whereby they'd put their photo next to then President Howard Taft's photo, and Congress was up in arms over this. You had the War of the Worlds controversy, where Orson Welles had a radio broadcast talking about an alien invasion of New York, and people believed it, and there was chaos in Times Square. With the rise of the internet, I used to receive emails from Nigerian princes promising me millions of dollars. At first I was like, wait, really? I have a long-lost brother in Nigeria who wants to give me millions of dollars? No. I eventually developed the media literacy to understand what email was fake and what was a scam. Ultimately, what I think it comes down to, the problem, is that misinformation, lies, are tools that people use to reinforce their political identities. Rather than persuade people's of fact. So they will cling to this misinformation, this lie, this untruth, even in the absence of knowledge because of our polarized situation. And I don't think having the government come in and then determine what is true and false is going to solve that. I think it is going to amplify it and increase the polarization that is the root cause.
Thank you very much, Nico.